Your greetings in the name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I, the First, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, glorious African King, Mark African. And we are here to, as usual, um, reason together. Now, today's lecture, I prefer to call it a presentation. It's not designed to deepen the cracks, which is already an issue with I and I as the Black family. On the other hand, it is to draw attention to these cracks and to possibly our roles in what's happening in creating, even if unwittingly, but in creating, maintaining, fueling, and possibly passing down some of these attitudes, which are guaranteed to, at best, delay and at worst, kill our desire to come together as one Black united family. Now, it is intentionally titled also. If you listen to the title, it's kind of provocative, but it's intentionally titled because of the dire nature of the subject. It's not something that we want to use kid gloves on anymore. It's not a laughing matter at all. Our very existence as a people depends on this, because we know that, for instance, the Russians and the Americans are the bitterest of rivals. We may even call them enemies, if you will. But it gets to a point where they agree on common grounds. They agree to go to space and launch some type of program and all of that. So it's absolutely important that whether you agree with what I'm going to say or not, we keep our eyes on the bigger goal, which is African unity, unity of all Black people, home and abroad. Now, today's topic is going to be a bit uncomfortable. And if you find parts of it uncomfortable, know that it's possibly even more uncomfortable for me to say what I have to say. But I have to say what I have to say because there's an account saying, which I sign on to wait. If you fail to treat your nephew's sore, if you fail to treat your nephew's leg sore because you love him too much, you may end up having to amputate his leg entirely. So we don't want to amputate no leg. We just want to treat our nephew's leg sore. And it's not going to be too comfortable, but let us listen carefully. And of course, I'm not claiming to be an authority on anything that I'm going to say, but let's apply ourselves to reasoning about these things. Why are we looking at these three areas? The presentation is titled The Death of Reggae and the Concepts of African Unity and Repatriation. Now, I'm going to tackle these triad topics individually. But before that, I'd like to examine a certain document that came to my attention, which honestly is part of the reason why, when I was called on to deliver a presentation, I chose this topic. I felt like, okay, once again, this matter is passing without anybody reacting to it, like we always do. When they said Africans couldn't play reggae, we said, all right, keep your music, and then we went along. And now this. Let's look at this letter, which I'm going to look, like I said, at the three advertised areas: reggae, repatriation, and African unity, and hopefully draw a convergence. But before that, I'm going to read and react to what, in my opinion, is one of the most ill-advised alphabets ever put on a sheet of paper, or maybe typed on a computer keyboard. And to my shock, this document is not, it's not the fact that the document is written that shocked me. Because after all, the first version of the document I saw was titled Anonymous. Whoever wrote it was probably too ashamed to put their name on it. But with time, I've seen some well-respected people putting their names on this document, which prompts me to have to react. So let's do it. I'm looking at that document. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before. And it's this document that popped up where somebody was questioning the authority of the Continental Rastafari Councils and practically claiming authority over the use of what they consider a franchise. And that's unfortunate because Rastafari is not a franchise. It's way more than that. I will react to that question, the letter straight away. First of all, and as I said, this is not to deepen cracks, so I will try very hard not to mention specific names, but who the cap fits, please feel very free to wear it. Okay, so first of all, the document that I saw, or one of the people that I saw reacting or accepting that document, referred to themselves as having a leadership role in the Rastafari Council of Ghana. First of all, how do you have a leadership role in something that's not even legitimate? I shudder to reason about that. The whole idea, once we go to the letter, you realize that the whole idea was to question the legitimacy of the continental councils, and some specific ones were mentioned. Rastafari Council of Ethiopia, Rastafari Council of Ghana, Rastafari Council of Sierra Leone, Rastafari Council of Angola. And then they said any other body claiming continental or international authority over Rastafari affairs. Like, how do you even, where does that idea even come from to even think of something like that? Let's take it step by step. First of all, like I said, this brother, as part of his credentials on that same document that I saw, says he has a leadership role in the Rastafari Council, Ghana. How do you have a leadership role in something that is illegitimate? Let's ask ourselves that, and let's move it along. Now, that same document copies the Nyabingi Order, the 12 tribes of Israel, Bobo Shanti, Ebek, right, which is Bobo Shanti, and I'd say all the mansions and houses of Rastafari. Again, this is an acknowledgement that they are legitimate bodies of Rastafari on the continent to which you are addressing these concerns. Let's also note that. Now, let's assume that these people have authority of some sort. Right, 1 second, let me turn on my light. My face was a little dark. Right. So yes, let's assume that they have some sort of authority on which they're operating. But then I ask myself, if you acknowledge that these houses are houses or mansions of Rastafari, then how do you, at the same breath, question their authority? Unless to say that you are saying that they need your authority to organize and centralize, which is something that is at the core of Rastafari, right? Father himself has given us the commission. Is the Honorable Prophet Marcus Mosiah Garvey has given us the commission to organize and centralize. Why do we need anybody else's authority to do that? Let's also make note of that question. Now, this person also starts by greeting in the name of His Imperial Majesty, just like I did. His Imperial Majesty is an African, a glorious African king, and that's why I also emphasize that in my greeting as well. His Majesty was not a Jamaican prime minister, with all due respect. His Majesty was emperor of all black people on earth. Seat in Ethiopia, ancient Kedamawi throne in Ethiopia. So how do you come from outside of Jamaica, with all due respect, to claim authority over something that bears the hallmark, the identity, the name of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I first? That also lets mark. Now let me read the letter and then let's all look at how fabulous some people can, some very fertile imaginations, if you ask me. All right. It says this message addresses a matter of order and principle within the movement. One, position rejected. The narrative that numerical size, geographic expansion, or registration of organizations equals legitimacy and that operating across Africa places any council beyond question is hereby rejected. Obviously, knowing that Africa as a large continent possibly would have numbers in terms of, organization if they were to go by that. But isn't that an advantage to I and I as a people, as a body? Why should that be a minus rather than a plus? But they reject that. Fair enough. Let's move on. Standard of legitimacy. Number 2, it says Rastafari not validated by how many organizations one can register or how widely one can spread a name. Legitimacy comes from order, accountability, and alignment with the fundamental principles of the movement, not self-appointment. And whoever wrote this letter, I'm very happy to announce that the RCG, of which I am a member, qualifies very much under this point, just so you know. And I believe it's the same for the other councils. I'm only speaking for RCG because I know what the RCG stands for. And I believe it's the same thing that the other Rastafari bodies also stand for. 3, facts for record. The named councils present themselves as as representatives of Rastafari at a continental level while operating, 1, without published mandate from the collective. And then I asked a question on that point. From which collective? What's their address? Please send me their address. I will mail them an invite to be invited to the table of the collective. Because if there's a collective that does not include the continental races and empresses, that to me is no collective. What collective? Seriously, let's talk about this. Because we're hearing about a collective. Like what? This is the Vatican? Where there's some council of some people sitting in some kind of waiting for some white smoke to pop out of some place before we realize that what is this? This is shameful. But anyhow, they claim there's a certain collective. What's this collective? Is that collective made up of Jamaican mansions only? Is it made up of any other part of the world apart from Ghana? Apart from Africa? Or let's seriously ask, is it just that we don't qualify because we haven't put in an application yet? And if so, has any other part of this so-called collective put in an application to be part of the collective? This is useless semantics, which only serves to distract from the bigger goal. Next point. It says they are operating without oversight from any recognized reasoning of Elders Council. I ask the same question. Please, somebody share their email address. I want to send them an email and beg them for a seat at the collective. Because that's what they want, Abi. Somebody has to come and ask to be part of the collective from somebody else based on what I don't know. Next point, it says without accountability to a transparent, verifiable process. And then my question is definition of that transparent, verifiable process, please. Because as far as I'm concerned, the RCG, as an example, has a solid constitution, parts of which is still work in progress. Work in progress because everybody's consensus is sought. We're trying to tweak and refine things to such a point where even though we come from different mansions or we may not come from any mansion, we can still agree on a constitution to move us forward. And I want to commend the works of Daddy Bosco and all the executives of the RCG, Seven Fireside, and all the other players who are day and night taking this as if they're getting paid to do this. Doing some serious work, only for somebody to come and say, nah, all that is bogus. You have to come and ask us for recognition, practically. Let's continue and see the absurdity of that. We have quite a while to go. Okay, now, it says this is not leadership. This is assumed authority without foundation. I disagree. Let's move on. A lot of this is nonsense, by the way. So let me just put that on record and let's move on. It says, let the record reflect. No council, whether in Ethiopia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, or Angola, has demonstrated, one, a clear constitutional basis recognized across the movement. That is BS. Two, a transparent governance structure accountable beyond its own circle. Beyond its own circle to who? As far as I'm concerned, the members of the RCG are accountable, the executive of the RCG are accountable to the members of the RCG. As far as I'm concerned, they are works in progress to form a regional body, which is actually off the ground, to which the members, to which there'll be accountability mechanisms in there. But if you say to account to who for what, should we tell you how much dues we collected? Kofi, get your books ready. Somebody in Jamaica wants to see how much dues we paid this year. This is ridiculous. That's what I'm trying to say. And now the third point, he says, or any legitimate process by which it can claim to speak for Rastafari collectively. This is complete hogwash. And I beg you, please, pardon a bit of the, but truth of the matter is that we can treat this thing with kid gloves and it will be just another, speech. Just like we did not do anything when we were told that reggae music is whatever. And I'll come to that. Growing up, I thought reggae music was king's music. That period. If I heard music that didn't have Haile Selassie name in it or have some kind of conscious African revolutionary music in it, it was bogus for me. Do you know how long it took me to start liking Lucky Dube's music? Because I hardly heard Haile Selassie's name in there. So this day, there are only a few songs from Lucky Dube that I truly like. I'm telling you, because he hardly mentioned Haile Selassie's name. But I'm growing up to find out that, the things that will not be Haile Selassie, it's Jamaican culture. So leave us to sing slackness over the beat and let's claim it and bogus you somewhere and say it's not your music. Go play highlight. Fair enough. We can go play highlight. But what about this one? Is Haile Selassie not our share too? No, sir. We have to react to that. That's the whole reason why I'm doing this. So please, forgive me if it becomes a little bit, in there. But we have to do this. We have to. All right, 5, clarification. He said Africa is not in question. Oh, no, that's not true. Africa is in question. Africa is the foundation of all of this, right? So Africa is in question. He says Rastafari presence in Africa is not in question. No, sir. Again, that is a question. If that was not the point, why did Leonard Howell and why did they make the trip to Africa? To do what? Because again, if you say that, oh yes, Haile Selassie, fair enough. But they went to Ghana also. So it wasn't just even about citing the king seated on the throne. They realized the importance of the connection, the continental connection. And let me make this clear. I'm not speaking against any nationality, any group of people, nothing like that at all. But if you want to align yourself in that way and only see yourself that way, you're welcome to do that, please. Right? Because we know that as we struggle to move forward, there are still some among us who feel like they are different from continental Africans. We have Liberia as an example. We don't want to go too deep into that, but we have Liberia as an example to guide us. Let's move on. I have a question for these people. Has any of these regional organizations claimed any authority beyond their jurisdictions? I've never seen the RCG, as an example, claiming to speak for the entire Rastafari community worldwide. I've never seen that, even though if you ask me, we should have the authority to do so. But I've never even seen that happen. So where does this even come from? Number 6, direct challenge. So therefore, this stands as a direct challenge. Public answers are required to the following. How dare you? A, on a constitutional basis, on what constitutional basis do you claim continental authority over Rastafari? I don't think we have claimed anything beyond our jurisdiction. And on what basis would you also claim any authority over the African continent in that same breath? If we were to go by that question, we can easily flip that question around. On what basis do you also put yourself in a position where you feel like you have authority over what happens on the continent of Africa? In terms of Rastafari, you don't own Rastafari. Like, what's going on here? Number 2, it says, who recognizes the authority outside of yourself? We'll let that slide, obviously. But my answer to that was His Imperial Majesty does. And we don't need anyone else to give us any form of authority. His Majesty already gave us the commission. We are on there already. We are on the road already. So we don't need anybody else to recognize any authority anywhere. It says, what system of accountability do you submit to, and how can you be removed by the collective if necessary? Goes back to that same collective email address. We don't know which collective is trying to remove anybody for what. You are thinking of removing people even before you have united. When the whole question is about unity, African unity, you haven't even forged a plan to unite with the continental African organizations, but you're already thinking of removing somebody. Ridiculous. It says Rastafari is not a marketplace of titles and councils. It's a movement that demands discipline and responsibility. Until those standards are met, all such claims of continental representation remain unproven and uncontested. Legitimacy begins with a published constitution, elected officers, and annual reasoning open to all houses. And need I say that all these things are tick, 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 tick for the Rastafari Council of Ghana, and I believe for the other Rastafari councils across the continent as well. Truth, discipline, responsibility. And I have a signed name which I will not read, but which I'm very surprised at. Because even though the original letter I saw said anonymous, the brother claimed that he aligns with this reasoning. And I think that we should at least have a decent conversation about this. No ill feelings at all, because truth of the matter is, hey, opinions are opinions, right? Maybe there's an angle to the whole picture that I am missing. Maybe the brother can bring me to see that angle and revise my notes. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a piece of communication that should be treated the same way bathwater is treated. Now, let me go down to the triad topics. I'm going to start with reggae music. And again, let me say, for the record, today's reasoning is not intended to deepen the cracks at all. It's just intended to enlighten us. And maybe we will realize that there are certain things that we all need to revise, home and abroad. All right. Back in the day, as I indicated earlier, reggae music was basically, to me, King's music. For a lot of us, that's how we cited Jah, right? That's how come we, came to see the Father. Imagine dawn time, and back in the day when we had cassette players. I remember my first paycheck as a national service person, right? Back in Ghana. First paycheck. You know how it went in Ghana back in the day. national service, you don't get paid for like 3, 4 months, and then your pay comes, you know. So I'd work for a while. First paycheck, I bought myself, uh, double player cassette, and I bought 3 reggae tapes. In fact, I bought 4 tapes. One for my mom, which was Daughters of Glorious Jesus. And then I bought 3 tapes for myself. Culture, Burning Spear, and I think I Jama. And nobody had peace in the neighborhood for the next how long. I was constantly blasting Culture. I'd wake up at dawn and listen to Culture, especially Culture. And I would listen to what he's saying, and I would listen to the connection between what he's saying and my own reality as an African youth. And then I would listen to the Jamaican experience, and I'll compare it to my own experience. Okay, I wasn't taken away from the continent, but look at the experience. So reggae music became a glue for some of us with Rastafari. But we only grew up, as I was saying, to find out that no, it's not Rastafari, I think. It's a Jamaican thing. So you are not even allowed to participate, so to speak, right? The irony is that we fail to, when we fail to deal decisively with these matters, we'll take them as, oh, okay, no, let's put it on the side. But it will be hurting us. Now, for reggae music, decades and decades and decades over, it was the philosophy. It was a philosophy, it was a movement, it was a source of consciousness. It was church, if you will. African youth. Through voices like some of the ones I've mentioned, right? African youth came to have a connection with their missing part, which is the diaspora, the stolen children. And the themes dealt with our realities also. In countries like Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, reggae became the soundtrack of resistance and self-awareness. Even in countries where we didn't deal with things like racism and apartheid and things like that, we still had social issues to deal with. Police chasing us down for ganja and things like that, to which reggae provided the panacea, the healing balm to our wounds. Now, we are familiar with Burna Boy and how he disrespected, and I'm calling it what it is. It was clear disrespect. Disrespected Steel Pulse recently. That got me thinking. I was like, Steel Pulse, that's reggae royalty. When I met David Hines, it was such a big deal for me. And we have an African youth who has, through music, made some money and some fame and whatnot, disrespecting Steel Pulse. Like that? Like, what's going on? But that speaks clearly, and this has nothing to do with Steel Pulse. It's not their fault. It's the fault of those who are deepening the cracks between us. Because back in the day, reggae, like I said, used to be our balm. Now, if you're telling us we can't play it anymore, we cannot partake in it anymore, people will find alternatives. So they find all these other music which deals with what it deals with, no disrespect to any genre of music. But all I'm saying is that these genres of music are not the king's music. The only music through which I came to associate with the king is reggae music. But now all of a sudden, right? So that connection is lost. This is why it's important. Otherwise, like I said, back in the day, right? But now it's like, no, it's a deep setback to the struggle. And I think that some of the racists who are also artists, Jamaican artists, should step up and start claiming their rightful place in the reggae arena. Because now the narrative is that it's really not a king music thing. It's reggae. Listen, I know some people who, racists, not from Jamaica, racists, who have completely unplugged from reggae music, period, because how it's treated, right? Can you blame them? I don't know. I don't know. That's a question for all of us to answer. But coming from the days of waking up at dawn to listen to culture, to the days where Burna Boy is disrespecting steel poles, that's a far cry. That's a very far cry. And if anybody had told me that I would see that happen in the space of time that I saw it happen, I would never have believed it. But it's happening right now. Let me also share this experience. Maybe that will explain the issue better. Africa Unite. I forget the year. Somebody can remind me, I'm sure. In Ghana, Bob Marley, his family, they all came around, set up stage, whatnot, everything. And let me say one more time, I'm not speaking against any group of people because you always find the opposite of what we are talking about, right? Anyhow, there was this show, Ghanaian reggae players wanted to perform. The express agreement they had to come to was that you cannot play reggae on the show. We will let you play on the show only if you agree to play something other than reggae. And at the very least, even if it's something that sounds like reggae, it should be like something in your language. Then we will let you go. I remember I saw this brother. What's his name? I forget. He has some very nice tree reggae tune, right? They allowed those. They will let you play that. But anything that sounds anything close to say you are trying to sound like no room for that. I don't know why. But that's what happened with the reggae. So now people are detaching from reggae. People are coming to, like me, accept. Or have I accepted? I don't know, maybe not. That reggae, after all, is not clean music. And maybe I should start looking for some other form of music. Even as an artist myself, I've started questioning my choices in what type of rhythms should accompany my thoughts in the form of music, right? Because if I'm going to play music, which is truly what's resonating from inside of me, but it's going to be seen as trying to copycat somebody, you know what I'm talking about there. All right. Now, let me move on to the second of the triad, repatriation and reparations. We saw the sad incident of when President Mahama, one second, grab this from up here so I can get more air. President Mahama went to the United Nations to go present the issue of reparations before them. And then we saw the reaction that came from the foundational Black Americans, right? And that's just one little example. Let me once again share a little experience. Back in Ghana, where, I had met some brothers from the diaspora and all that. We were, hanging out, talking, stuff like that. And there was this particular brother that I had a whole lot of respect for. It was like a mentor to me, right? Also because he was a journalist, so I was kind of particularly interested in, studying under his feet type of thing. And then one day we were, having a meditation, talking, doing what we're doing, whatnot. And then the issue of Africans selling their brothers and sisters into slavery came up. And I thought that this well-educated, erudite brother would stand up and state the facts. But to my utter surprise, when I turned to him for support, I realized that, so even the so-called among the conscious feel that we sold them into slavery. This was many years back. This was in the 19s, right? Before the turn of the millennium. This was when I was in Legon, way back. But I realized that many years after, when I moved to the United States, I realized that that same question keeps coming up in different forms. And the latest of that is what we saw at the United Nations with the foundational Black Americans, asking what authority President Mahama has to go speak for Black Americans. Now, I mean, for Black people. Now, do you see something in common with the letter we just examined? Questioning the authority? Do you see what I see? The letter is questioning the authority of Africans, Rastafari Africans, to form organizations and speak for themselves. That letter was questioning that. Here we are with a group of people questioning why a Ghanaian president would stand up and speak for Black people at the United Nations. Do you see what is going on? So that's where we're heading, right? Now, let's come back to the repatriation and the reparations matter. Part of the whole mantra that we heard about repatriation as part of the principles of Rastafari is Africa for Africans, home and abroad. That pause is deliberate because I want everybody to think about that before I drop the next one. But I'll repeat that before I drop the next one. Africa for Africans, home and abroad. So the same group of people who are seemingly in the authority of Africa to do anything at all want a piece of Africa after all, as real estate, not as identity, as real estate. Now, let me drop the second one. They say we will never give up an island for a continent. Another deliberate pause. We will never give up an island for a continent. But we will never share our culture, which emanated from that same continent, with the inhabitants of the said continent. This is ridiculous. This is why we have to address these issues, because otherwise, that whole concept of repatriation, reparation, whatever, only serves as a mantra and nothing else. If we are serious about these concepts, we have to have a deep conversation about them so we know exactly what we're doing. We've borne this for too long. Continental Africans have been blamed for everything, selling, you sold us into slavery. Bro, and I keep saying, if two of us are smoking weed and police come and I run away and they catch you, it not be me may they catch you. In as much as I sympathize with the fact that they catch you, it not be me cause them. Maybe the time they caught, they catch you, said, me said, I know even did. You know, there are Africans who never had any encounter with slavery. Do you know this? Professor Ponwade would back me up on this. There are certain groups of people who never had any contact with any form of, say, Obiabechi or Musi Ekotom. So what if I'm a descendant of such a group of people? But I have to carry the tag that I sold my brothers and sisters into slavery, that my authority has been neutralized. And I have to sit and wait for somebody somewhere with an unknown address to give me legitimacy before I can speak. So this is an house thing, right? It's uncomfortable for us, I know. But if we don't have this discussion, we will sit down and forever there will be groups in Ghana which will have meetings, and then when you show up there, they will tell you, say, no, you're Ghanaian, so you can't be here. These things are happening. I don't want to mention names. Some of you will back me up if you are brave enough to step up to it. That there are groups of African Americans and Jamaicans and other diaspora nationals in Ghana who hold meetings which Ghanaians cannot go to. And we'll keep quiet and pretend like it's not happening, or pretend like, oh, you know, it will fester to something else. Like I hope I've proven to you. Because from you can't play reggae music to you need our permission to hail Jah. and to organize and centralize, we should know that something is happening that needs to be checked. And the last thing on repatriation before I move on to the last of the triad topics. We still stand for repatriation because, like I said, that misguided few will not own the narrative. And that's why we are having this discussion. After we've gotten over how much it hurts us to hear some of the things we are hearing today, let's re-emerge, right? And make sure that we are reclaiming the narrative. The narrative is the important thing. The reason why after 400 years, people who were never anywhere around think that we sold them into slavery is because somebody sustained a narrative for 400 solid years that we were complicit in that whole process. So if you're able to wrestle the narrative, force reasoning to prevail, then we would have done something for ourselves. But let me also say, if anybody wants to still pull against what we are doing as trying to unite the African family, we personally will just have to consider that this person or that group is anti what we are doing, because we know that there are Black people who are working for interests that are not necessarily positive to Black people. Okay, excuse me. All right, now African unity, and then we'll move it up. So except for the obvious and unfortunate emergence of the Black on Black violence in South Africa related to immigration and migration, African unity seemed to be making some inroads, right? The Sahel region, for instance, have shown the way by forging a three-country alliance, same as Kwame Nkrumah had in mind back in the day. Ghana, Guinea, Mali, right? Mali is still there in the mix. Hail up Mali, because Mali seems to be very, very, very signed on to the concept of African unity. Because when Kwame Nkrumah thought of Ghana, Guinea, Mali was in there. Now we have the alliance of Sahel states, and Mali is still in there, right? And they're showing the way. They're showing the way, even though and sometimes I have, individual reasonings with Virgin, like Seven Fireside and stuff like that. And sometimes we don't agree on everything, to be honest with you, right? One of the issues is that Seven Fireside, as an example, feels like Africa should be one solid unit. And when we're talking about it, there shouldn't be any Ghana, Nigeria, whatever. I'm not speaking for him. Maybe I'm overstating it. But basically, he's for a one solid Africa. I am for that too, except to say that we can work with smaller units, because imagine trying to unite the whole of Africa with a country like South Africa, with its government presenting the problem that is presenting, versus using a country like Ethiopia today, right? There was this thing on social media the other day, which people were making a lot of fun of. Somebody took a photo of the subway in New York City and took the photo of the train system in Addis Ababa and put it side by side and said, guess which one is Africa? And it was hilarious, because you see the subway in Ethiopia, you see Ethiopia building a dam with funding from Ethiopia. Didn't borrow money from nobody. You know how they did it? They went to their own nationals who have money in the diaspora and asked them to fund the project. Every cent that went into that project came from Ethiopian sources, right? That's such a huge success. So we are highlighting these things. And now other countries see that and they'll be like, and let me also say this, there's this video of this young woman who does short skits where he'll bring pictures of heads of state and then like whip them. And then when she brings one that's like a good one, she salutes them and that type of thing. That's what I'm talking about. That woman is not from Ethiopia. She's from somewhere else, but she sees Ethiopia as a model that her country should copy. So that makes a statement for working in smaller groups to make an impact on bigger groups. Nigeria is a whole lot bigger than Ghana, but there are Nigerians saying, make we go Ghana, go bring Ghana president to come be president for here. You see the things that President Mahama is doing. They work. Oh, we wish Tinubu would do that, right? So that's my thing there. But now back to the African unity question and xenophobia thing and all of that. A friend of mine was joking about if South Africans want, they should leave and Haiti will come and take their place because Haiti is trying to join the African Union. My answer to that, no. We want both South Africa and Haiti. And speaking of Haiti, we should be very proud and very supportive of Haiti. Haiti is our real estate outside of Africa. And the people of Haiti are our kith and kin. And most importantly, they have expressed the interest to join the African Union. I think maybe President Bosco and the executive, one of the campaigns maybe we should take on is to promote the admission of Haiti into the African Union. And to Haiti, if the AU is giving you a hard time, apply to the AES. I'm sure they will have you any day. I believe so, right? And then from there, maybe we can work things out. But yes, there are still wonderful South Africans. There's Julius Malema, who I've heard openly criticize and condemn what's going on. There's a certain comedian, I forget his name, who has done the same. There's Trevor Noah, who made a very stark point that in South Africa, people are not chasing the gold, the people who actually hold the money, right? The mines, the De Beers, and all these people, they're still mining in South Africa. Nobody's telling them anything, but they're chasing those who shine their shoes. He's a comedian. He makes a joke about it, but it's a profound joke that those who have ears will listen. So we're not speaking against South Africans at all. We're speaking against the unfortunate incident going on there, which sadly is being fueled by people in authority. And maybe the voices who will speak against it are afraid themselves. So they would rather keep quiet and helplessly watch what's going on. So we are not, by any stretch of the imagination, attacking South Africans. We're attacking the black on black violence, and we are promoting black on black love in the country of South Africa when it comes to African unity. But when it comes to that, if we don't have our fundamentals right, then there will be no African unity at all. If we don't have the proper foundation to stand on, if we signed all the papers we have signed up to this point, if we have a headquarters in Addis Ababa for the Organization of African Unity, but up to this day, we still have a country that can ask another country to leave its shores. And let's not make it sound like it's a South African thing. Ghana, we've done it before. Nigeria did it too. And funny enough, these are the two that are being kicked out of South Africa. Karma, I don't know. But again, that's what I'm saying, though. We need to examine, we need to be a bit more nuanced when we start talking about things like African unity. Because it's easy to pass that off as a slogan, right? Africa unite. But when I want to go to Addis Ababa, I have to fly to Brussels to catch a connecting flight back to the continent of Africa. What sense does that make? And now we're seeing some leaders who are taking some pragmatic steps towards that. A leader like President Mahama is, and not just President Mahama, few of them are abolishing the visa thing. So if you're an African, you can just fly to Ghana and get a visa on arrival. So you're not going to spend 2 weeks waiting for a visa to go to Ghana to go see a loved one. You go to Ghana. When you reach Accra, then you get your visa at the airport, and then you go in the country. Simple as that. That's what happened when I went to Dubai. When I got there, they said, hey, you pay $100 and then you get the visa. I said, no, I'd rather keep my $100. I'll stay right here in the airport. Everything that's over there, I'm not interested. Long story short. But that's what I'm saying. Things like that are happening. The president of Benin is acknowledging the fact that he has a problem which he needs the AES to solve. So even though he has not left ECOWAS, he has made a bold statement by forming an alliance with the AES. Ghana has done the same, right? I foresee a time where the ECOWAS will just switch names and become AES, or maybe we'll just change the name and because it will no more be Sahel, but they are setting a certain tone, which I think the rest of Africa are very interested in following. that's my presentation for today. I have let me just wrap it up by looking at some of the signs of the cracks, right? Because some people may even wonder why I'm even concerned at all. But we see clear signs, and I'll mention just a few as I wrap up my presentation. I've already mentioned Mahama at the United Nations and the Foundational Black Americans and their demonstration. I've also mentioned the xenophobic attacks in South Africa, which is not new. We've also seen that in Ghana and Nigeria in the past. I'm sure maybe in other places as well. But I want to end by saying that will I stop listening to reggae music? No, I will not. Reggae is some of the most beautiful music ever created. So I don't intend to stop listening to reggae music. Heck, if I get a vibe that is reggae and I need to record music, I will record it without feeling any sense of whatever there is to feel at all. I will not. Now, when it comes to the question of the xenophobic attacks and all that, also people have mentioned boycott South Africa. No, if you boycott South Africa, the implication it has on other people, even who are not South Africans, is immense. And then what would we have achieved? I don't believe the answer lies in boycotting South Africa or reggae music or anything of that nature. I think the answer lies in reowning the narrative. I think that's all that matters here, the narrative. Because if the narrative is right, there'll be no basis on which to even suggest that continental bodies of Rastafari need authority from anyone to speak for themselves or to represent themselves. If the narrative is right, nobody is going to even closely suggest that all of Africans sold their own into slavery. If the narrative is right, we will sit at the table and say African unity with the same things in mind, not with one side thinking that we are entitled and you should sit down until we tell you to get up. That will not work. It will not work at all. I give thanks for the opportunity to share this. And as I said, it is only the beginning of the discussion. I'm sure as we go along, this particular discussion will, bring about other issues that we need to look at in a nuanced way. But I give thanks for the opportunity. One love. Russ.
Russ Kofi, you did it. Russ Kofi did it.
Yes, I.
So
It'd be like a light break small.
right.
Yeah,
Okay, while they fix some, I'll go for ask.
Yes,
make a point, a question, and ask a question.
Thanks so much for that presentation.
Make a point. Oh, cool.
You want to make?
Kofi. Kobe, I think you should sign out and sign back in, if you can hear me. Try sign out and sign back in. Maybe that will change the setting.
Yeah, so any questions there? You know, I want to throw one in real quick. Job love it.
Yes, Nana.
Yes. So
she's working. Why hasn't she been able to save anything?
So yeah, then I want to ask you to see the situation right now, right? There are things that are going on that if you unify us, and there be things where they go on to where they defeat to divide us, right? Wait till you think say the emphasis they on. Wait till you see the emphasis they on now, and wait till you go prefer say the emphasis go there on. Some very interesting way I ask you to talk about them where they say they don't want to share, they don't go exchange an island for a continent. You know, say more Timo Plano say just about the opposite. And, you know, and that'd be Rastafari right there. He said you never go sort of like let go of a continent for an island. Right. So and I love how you tie the thing to Joseph Hill, the lyrics you hear from Cole.
Island.
What you say? What you say?
You said this will let go a continent for an island.
Yeah, I mean, Plano said that. He said he would, you know, he wasn't Jamaicanizing his Rastafari. His was Africa, right? So what I'm saying is that Rastafari, as you were saying earlier on, is Africa. It's about Africa or Africanness. You know, so this other thing is something else that, you know, you mark out as something for pay attention to. And Joseph Hill lyrics, way to listen to them, you say be Africa, they talk. You know, I'm a humble African, you know. If you did sing about South Africa, I'd be like you did there, no, I'll be that, you know, like, you know. So I think so before play up that part small, because I think sometimes some of us to the Jamaicanize Rastafari, way to give someone over there a reason to say, well, if you're trying to be like me, then this is how you got to be like. This is how you got to do it, you know.
Good point. You see, except that, with all due respect again to our Jamaican brothers and sisters, I think you should be flattered when someone wants to be like you in that sense, right? Because instead of mocking you, we're not mocking you, we're trying to be like you, if that's what we're trying to do. Now, this is my reaction to that also. Some of us, most of us, speak English, impeccable English, right? We speak, nobody tells us that we're trying to be like nobody. But then you try to speak with your brother who cannot understand tree. First of all, I meet my Jamaican brother, I meet my Antiguan brother, whatever. I have a brother from Antigua who insists that we speak to him. Bro, you're giving me too much work to do, because there are things I have to tell you. Every sentence I have to explain to you, you know. But yeah, we have some lovely people like that. But however, what I'm saying though is this: you can't speak my language. Tree, Fanti, Gan, Ewe, Yoruba, Zulu, Xhosa, whatever, right? But I can speak something close to what you speak so you can understand what I'm saying. Would you rather I do that, or would you rather I speak like an English person? You see what I'm saying? It's a way, yeah. So don't you respect the fact that I'm trying to imitate your dialect or your tone or whatever, just so we can communicate? Right? Versus also trying to, yeah, I meet Jamaicans who string a sentence together and I can't understand one thing. Okay? Now imagine send me to a shop and me to start booing back over there. What's going to happen? Chaos. So at least I am making the effort to learn how you speak, and then to try to replicate that so I can communicate with you. Why did I go wrong there? Now, let's also look at this thing with the island for island for this thing. So Simon, what was the idea? The idea was that they were saying that they were not going to leave Africa for the island, or
No,
you're
I'm
not
talking
going to
about one individual here. I'm talking about multiple
yeah,
plano. Say no multiple plano.
yeah.
Yes, him. Yeah, where he did say that. Say he not go trade a continent for an island. Say this is the Rastafari. Some of us know. They see
yes,
Africa, only
yes,
Africa. That's what
yes.
they live there about. Yeah,
Yes.
and now we
And
have
that's
another thing that is happening. What you say?
I said that's the unfortunate part because again, like I mentioned, examples of lovely South African people. Let me also give you my experience with culture. Joseph Hill of blessed memory, right? Same show I was telling you about. Mali children, whoever coming up, anybody, listen, star-studded show. Now these people come out and you can't even get. I worked with the team. I was the person who booked their hotels in Kumasi. I supervised the setting up of the stage. I was practically like the production manager for that show in Kumasi. I couldn't get close to go shake hands with Zigimali and say, "Welcome to Kumasi." You know how many barriers there were before that? Now here comes culture. Joseph Hill. Soon as he came to look at the venue before the show started, right? So he came in the afternoon where we were still there, tidying things up. Soon as he came out of the van, somebody pointed him to me. He ran to me, embraced me like he knew me from 500 years ago, right? When he sings the same message that I used to hear when I was a boy, when I saw him, that's the same vibe I got. So Nana, you are very right. There's that. Internet Maker said the solution is reclaiming the narrative. Because when we were growing up, the narrative was that it's king music. You know what I said? When we were growing up, the idea was that repatriation is a must. There were no nuances. And maybe that was a mistake. Because maybe if we are pried beneath the surface, we would have realized that some people had a different definition from where we were operating from. And now that we have realized that, no, I don't think we have lost too much. I think we can still start working towards reclaiming the narrative, because there's a reason why Black people are being attacked in South Africa, whilst white people still continue to mine their minerals and declare certain zones as zones where the same Black people can't even go. So if it's about sovereignty you want, go to that place and go tell those people to get the fuck out. But that's not what's happening because of the narrative. And I think it was Jamalcolm who made a point about we should engage the South African Rastafari community in times like this. I think that's part of the solution. We should get the decent voices within these communities to highlight the positive stories and snatch back the narrative. Because it got into a point where people may not be listening to Mortimer Plano anymore. They may not be listening to Joseph Hill anymore. They may be listening to some other artists who have tattooed their eyeballs or something. And those people are not telling you nothing about His Majesty. They're singing about some girl they dealt with last night. So it's all about the narrative thing. Give thanks.
That's it, honey.
And the other thing is, Africa itself, when you come to reggae music, I would say reggae music made its debut on the shoulders of Africa as a brand, if we can call it that, right? Africa Unite, Africa this, Africa that, repatriation to Africa, forward home to Africa, do you remember the days of slavery, all of that? These are the themes that made reggae music. And I see that some of these people, because, and I don't mean to use these people negatively, right? I'm just saying the people who hold on to that narrative. Some of the reason why they're getting traction is because they feel like Africa doesn't have enough purchasing power when it comes to reggae, right? This is something that is have an intimate experience with. So I know what I'm talking about. I'll share one more experience, very short. Mighty Diamonds came to Ghana to perform. It was a fiasco. There was a show, there was like a 3-city tour. It was supposed to be a 3-city tour. 3-city tour. Accra, Kumasi, Takrady. They went to Accra. Preparations were not the greatest. Show didn't happen. They went to Takrady. Show didn't happen. They were very upset. They were coming to Kumasi. They got to Kumasi. We had set up the cultural center. We had a couple hotels booked. We had things. But because of the nature, because of how things had gone, we were working on a very tight budget. So we were now beginning to put them in like 2 in a room, right? Now, one of the artists, one of the Mighty Diamonds, one of the 3, we told him he was going to share rooms with somebody else. He nearly blew my head off. And then he turned on the guy who's supposed to be the lead. I forget his name. Garrett Sanders, I forget his name. And then he started rapping him down. I told you not to come. I told you. People told us already this was going to be a fiasco. Africa is no place to go. They told us not to come. Like, he was so upset, he couldn't wait right in front of us. He was like berating the guy. I told you we shouldn't come to this godforsaken country. Now see what's happening. And this is the same band that was singing everything about Africa, right? So I find it hard to connect with the fact that you can use Africa as a brand to play the music and make the money, but then you don't want to go there. You don't want any other association with the continent. We need to talk about this. We also need to draw attention to these people, the holders of that mindset, but for countries like Nigeria, where they had a record label and a record producing system, which was reproducing the music that they were playing for us continental Africans to enjoy to the point where it made sense for other people to also enjoy, there would have been no reggae music on that scale. Let's face it. What's the name of that record label? Like Emmy, I think, something like that. Nigeria had that. And then came the bootleg one. The bootleg one is kind of unfortunate because the artists would not be making money from that. But guess what? The artists never lost completely, because we also got to know about artists who later on came to Africa to perform for money, right? Through bootleg tapes, some of us came to hear about Ijaman and all these other ones. Culture came to Ghana 3 times. Buju Bantan has been there how many times? My friend Turbulence, yes, I heard had a bad experience, but he's still kind of very connected to Ghana and stuff like that. These are people that you can look up to and see that no, it's not a problem with any group of people. It's a problem of a mindset which has been signed on to by a group of people. And these are the people that we have to wrestle the narrative from. Give thanks. And I don't know if everybody's seen that document that I was referring to also. I don't know.
Which one need to talk about?
The letter I reacted to.
Okay. So how do you see the scenario now? How do you see like directions of things? What do you think? What do you sense based on your media work and your the reading of the scene? Where you think the emphasis there more in terms of this? Is it more of like we're paying attention to Rastafari as Slushy, Africa, right? or other things are becoming, or at least look like they are the points of emphasis?
I think that looking at it from the surface, it might think that we are in a bad spot because you see the activities of people like the Foundation Black Americans. You see the narrative that we are hearing from the letter that we looked at and all that, those type of things. It's depressing, and there is a temptation to think that nothing is going on. But I don't think so at all. I think that what this is, and I was making this example the other day. There's this movie I watched back in the day called The Cassandra Crossing, is it? Back in the day. But this small part I want to use as an example. This train was heading towards a bridge which was weak and about to collapse. And the train had lost brakes or something like that, so it couldn't stop. Now the bridge is weak, so they're trying to stop the train before it gets to the bridge, and they could not. They brought all the engineers on board. They tried everything, they couldn't. Then some guy that nobody regarded came and said, listen, why don't we rather increase the speed? People tell you, you're mad? Like, what's going on? But after a while, without any options, they were forced to do that, right? So they agreed to increase the speed. Increase the speed, and the science is that because of the speed, the train was lighter, and plus it took shorter to cross the bridge. Before the bridge would collapse, the train was clear of the bridge. That's the scenario that I see here. Instead of seeing a minus, I see, instead of seeing a glass half empty, I'm looking at a glass half full, right?
Yes,
it's
possibility.
a divine opportunity to be truthful to ourselves, first of all. And that's what's important, because without that, there will be no real dialogue. The real dialogue should happen now. I think that the dialogue that has happened in the past has happened against the backdrop of everybody having their own definitions of what should be, like the Wishale situation, right? Where the Italians had their own definition they wanted to come to the table with, right? So it's that kind of thing. It looks like we were thinking, oh, repatriation means that, oh, we were wrong together as a people, and some atonement has been done, and let's come together. And then there are also other people who are like, no, they sold us into slavery, so they have to sit down and wait for us to talk first. So with these two different things, where they don't know what we're thinking, we don't know what they're thinking about, we're sitting down and talking about African unity based on what? So that's what I'm saying. Instead of seeing this thing as something that is going to affect us negatively, it's time to take stock and admit that we need to have very serious, open-minded conversation about this thing. You can't control people's emotions. You can't tell people not to vex. But you can plead with them that after they vex, they should come back to the table to talk African unity. Right? But it's important also that we state things clearly. Now we have some of our children here going to school to be called names not by white kids, by Black American kids. So they come home crying. Why? Because somebody called them some name. Why did they call you that name? What does that name even mean? Oh, they said because I'm from Africa. Oh, wow. But right? And we're talking about African unity. We have to have this discussion. Otherwise, and I said, we have Liberia as an example. For many years, there were Black people living there. So everybody said, oh, we are all Black people, Abi. Yeah, we did it. But how come we, for so many years and years and years, there's nobody come from here except those who were brought back? And that's recipe for chaos. So if you don't scratch the surface of the wound and clean it and wipe it and put asawa and inkuto and things on it and a jongo on it, what fascinating crow a problem in future. One shot the baby do not see a China like it happened in Liberia. We want to avoid that. So I think that as uncomfortable as it is, we should bring these things up, because it looks like every time we're just there and somebody's like, oh, they did this to us, no more carry no more. Oh, they sold us into slavery, no more carry no more. Oh, you don't have the right to play this music, no more carry no more. Oh, you don't have the right to Rastafari, no more carry no more. No, if we don't react, we're just a sponge soaking all this bullshit. We have to speak with a voice that makes the you're kind of saying playing field no level, right? I have to explain to you in detail to make you understand that no, I did not sell you into slavery. I'm not responsible for that. Until you now clear ahead or now, maybe that mutual respect about you dealing with, because my shame, a lot of the brothers and sisters coming back, they still come with a certain mindset. And that's why we have to deal with this matter. Medasi.
So any other thoughts? Anybody want to share some thoughts?
Prof. Upon there.
Yes, I. Sorry, now I know the open the thing.
Yeah, tone culture.
My Monday, I take it in, you know. Give thanks.
No. Empress. Empress, I don't know can be now.
Right, Kwesi.
Yeah, I thought you were saying something.
No, I wasn't saying anything, but let me, if I have the floor, can I chip in?
Please.
Okay, great discussion. I like the topic and everything. And I'm going in and out. But what I heard you say was, if we don't react, something about if we don't react, so I'll put it like, if we don't react, then it will seem as if it's okay for it to be going on. And I agree with that. When things are happening, we talk about it, we address it, we react to what is going on as a way to address it and correct it, right? But I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Macron is coming to Ghana. Do you know why he's coming? And do you think, because we're talking the question of reparation, do you think that it's right for him to come and address us here when they voted against reparations? That's my question, please.
Great question. Now, when it comes to international diplomacy, it's a very tricky matter, right? So sometimes you see governments acting in certain ways, but they may be based on some other considerations, So I totally agree with you. I wouldn't suffer Macron anywhere near Ghana at all. I don't know his main aim for visiting and all that, except that I think this is what's going on. ECOWAS is on its knees. ECOWAS is fast losing popularity. People are looking at how long ECOWAS has been in existence versus the newly minted AES and the achievements they have gained, right? ECOWAS is France's tool in the sub-region. ECOWAS is primarily funded by France, for the most part, right? So they do France's bidding. That's why somebody like Tinubu and Akufo-Addo will get up and think of going to go and attack Burkina Faso. Who in their right minds would even do that, right? But it had been commissioned, and if the citizens of these two countries hadn't raised their voice loudly, we would have possibly had a situation where that may have happened, right? But we rose and spoke against it, so that didn't happen. Now, ECOWAS is losing authority because apart from losing 3 members, and when they lose 3 members, this is what's happening. They're losing a large portion of their territory, right? The whole sub-region, they've lost 3 big countries out of them. Niger and Mali are not small countries. Burkina Faso, not small either, but especially Niger and Mali, right? So in terms of land size, they've lost a chunk of what they can call ECOWAS. Now, in terms of resources and all that also, they have also lost all these countries as well. Now, the problem with that the AES has is that they don't have a seaport. So it makes trade a bit dodgy for them, right? And here comes Benin. First, Ghana. Ghana makes overtures to AES. So Ghana actually appoints an envoy to the AES. So even though on paper, during Akufo-Addo's time, the AES and ECOWAS were at loggerheads, they didn't talk. Now you have Mahama, who is playing a vital role in the ECOWAS, who has an envoy, whose country has an envoy in the AES, right? Now recently, Benin also comes and makes overtures to the AES as well. These are 2 countries with seaports. Burkina Faso does its port business through Ghana for the most part. Niger and Mali through Benin and Togo for the most part. Now, we have Benin, Ghana, all friendly towards the AES. That's further crumbling the ECOWAS. So I think that Macron is coming to try to carry a little bit of favor with Mahama in that sense, to try to get him to strengthen the ECOWAS in whatever form, I don't know. These people are dodgy, they can come and say anything. But I trust John Mahama to make decisions when it comes to that, because he recognizes that Burkina Faso is his kith and kin. He recognizes that when he was being installed, Traore, who had not traveled outside of Burkina Faso, came out of Burkina Faso to his inauguration. It means a lot. And it's not for nothing that he, in turn, sent an envoy to the AES. So I think what they're trying to do is to try to get Mahama to, even if not openly, get him to maybe implement some policies that may put spokes in the wheel of the AES. That's my suspicion. I don't know what he has announced that he's going to Ghana to do, but that guy is an unfortunate person, because I think, under his stewardship, France is beginning to suffer some serious losses which they had taken for granted back in the day, right? They thought, yeah, everything is fine, hunky-dory, But now, people like Ibrahim Traore, people like the president of Mali and Niger are telling him that, no, it's not business as usual anymore. And remember, without West Africa, France will be in a bad place, in a very bad place. So if you ask me, that's what I think may be going on there, Empress. Give thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. I like the way you submitted about Mahama and his kinship, ties with Traore. So my heart is beating, but I hope that the right thing will be done, that Mahama would make right decision. So
I believe you. I believe you. If he doesn't, we are here to check it, because we're not here to sing praise nobody at all. When the issue of the American bases in Ghana came up, we were there to criticize. We are not going to say that, hey, Mahama, you are fabulous. No, we don't want American bases in Ghana. The thing, though, is he's not responsible for them, right? This is something that he inherited, but we still have to make sure that he, as the custodian of government, of the seat of the country, should do the right thing. And the worst part is that some of his ministers were denying that there were no air bases. No, we will always keep the fire to their feet. But yes, if any head of state would follow an agenda with the AES, to our benefit, that would be John Mahama, I believe.
Thanks.
Thank you. Am I coming?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm called Tony from Tamale, and I'm actually so much happy to be part of this family because um, some of us liberated our mind, but we are still with the people whose mind is still enslaved,
Really,
making
we
it
can't
so
hear
much
you.
difficult for us.
Speak up. We can't hear you. Speak louder.
Empress, you dey hear him? It will be your system. I did hear him.
Okay, with my sister.
Okay.
It be my brethren that. It be my brethren that.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
Okay, so thank you so much, Madam Sadia. In fact, she brought some joy into my life the first time I met her in Tamale because we seems to be alone, understanding Pan Africanism. So the first time I saw her, I was so much happy. And for the past a month, I have been in Accra. So she told me that I asked her about whether there is any Pan African society in Accra here that maybe we can have a good relationship with. Then she introduced this to me, and I'm so much happy with this. And secondly, I am an engineer, I'm an artist, an innovator. So we train young people on how they can build their own potentials for us to create better Africa. Because one thing about me is I lost both parents when I was the age of 6 years and I was born alone. So through that, I started picking up scraps items from trash areas on my way home. And out of that, I was still able to provide electricity for my village through my innovations and inventions. And through that, I have become who I am today. But
Wow.
it's, it's fortunate and unfortunate that I'm right now in Accra because France Embassy came out with a program called Creation Africa. I think they've moved through all African continents, and currently they are in Ghana organizing young innovators to apply for a grant with 30,000 euros. In fact, for the past years in Tamale, 15 years I have spent in Tamale, I have moved, approached politicians to see how they can support my vision because I have built my own automobile car that works on the street of Tamale. And I have promised so many things. I have approached politicians to see how they can help me bring out these visions to life. But it's very unfortunate that they don't really understand why cars are there and you should still be making your mind to be making cars. So for that matter, this program came on as Creation Africa. Young innovators should apply for a grant. And we have applied. We're about 300. They are looking for 10. In fact, it was 3 days ago they announced that they've gotten their 10 finalists. They are going to fund 30,000 euros, and I'm part of them.
Nice.
The question here is, or my worry is, these people has put in a lot of cameras on us, listening to what young innovators want to do to help Africa. Now these people are going to fund us. The first time the meeting started, they are like they want to help Africa to grow. The France embassy and I stood up and I asked a question. I don't really think what you are saying is the same thing as what you really wanted to do because you've been in Burkina Faso for more than a year and you've not made any development over there. So I'm so surprised that you said you want Ghana to grow. So when I said that day, I knew I'm going to be disqualified because they were like, "Who is this boy?" But I feel like I have to say it because you can't pretend.
Uh-oh.
you this about the meaning of this act, you may not, you may
so completely.
Kwesi, what happened? We lose some.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be like he did on. Yeah, I just see I'm back though, but I think he's on mute. Sisa, can you hear us? I think you're on mute.
yeah, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and
So
wrap it up,
yes.
please.
So to the end of the chain, I call something a ghost. I call it who holds the trigger. Muammar Gaddafi wanted to fix Africa, but there is somebody who is triggering the black hand to shoot. Who is that person? Now you say you want to find young innovators, but I am building a colonial art that talks about the past. So are you really ready to find me? And I was so much scared that I didn't talk about that idea during this process, the presentation. I felt so sad that Black Pan-Africanists are not funding me, but someone who is not even supposed to hear what I'm doing is rather funding me. Now, after the 30,000 euros, they are going to support us with scholarship to go and study wherever to win a bigger grant. This doesn't make sense to me. But where are the Pan-African leaders? Where is President Mahama? How do we reach him? Tell him about what he's doing. These are some of the things, because some of us, the little family we have, they've even disowned us because the path we've chosen. Because I don't know why I should be a Pan-Africanist and be a Muslim, or I have a Christian or Muslim identity. To me, it doesn't make sense to me. So I changed my name. And this brought a fight. And this caused a divorce for me as well. Any child that comes has to bear a local name, and this is a very big problem in northern part of Ghana because they know nothing about Pan-Africanism. But where are the society, people that really has to support us? Because the people we are surrounded with are either Christian council, Islamic communities, and they own the resources to push us. And now we are talking against some of the things they do. So where do we get support? And these are my worry. So I'm so much happy to be part of this family. Maybe going forward, things will get better here. Thank you.
Nice one. Congratulations for getting shortlisted for the thing. And I'm very happy that you have your head screwed on properly. So you know when they're trying to exploit you. I will tell you this. This whole thing goes there like, say, did they roast potatoes inside fire, right? And you are hungry. So you have to find a way to grab that potato without getting your fingers burnt. Enough said. Go for it. Grab that potato. Don't get your fingers burnt.
Okay.
Daddy B. Daddy B. Daddy B, they here. I have a question for you. Well, Kofi, I beg take over. I'm not sure if Daddy B can hear me or
Rastafari.
Selassie, yeah.
We give thanks for leading this reason. We touch on a lot of things. Please, are there more questions or contributions? What I want to ask you, before maybe Daddy B go come in, or before your final remarks, we say, yes, we see the question about accountability and mandate. Say no, the very people they no show themselves the mandate and accountability them to the exhibit in their Rastafari trod. So, like you said, if you say we they take authority from, if it them we for take authority from, and yeah, but issue no buy any respond send wa respond and it's not like a crown so na you be say and that be the question I they want put to you. Say yeah, to some extent too, it be like say it no be accountability to them, but as a people running a movement, it do maybe for the appraise ourselves, maybe for the like the members, people who are signed on to as members, and then also maybe you can't Rastafari and answer a dang sang. Say a chere mu say Rastafari say and also you were juma bi wo ho I will glad if you go try make we appreciate to some extent some mandate where we have given ourselves say we they run the organ it come with a certain accountability to ourselves say
Ourselves.
yes to our say how far we trod, what are the bottlenecks, what we for some things they in place we go feel put in place where the thing go rise up, like make it answer the questions for which we set up, so that we know say those acting for accountability in and common if people no set out to organize RCC, like nobody go ask say, hey, where is your mandate to organize? The questions go come up. Now, so no, how are you positioning yourself? Saying the mandate you set for yourself, actualize it for yourself. Because one it's not to say and for your constituents and so that's it.
Medasi Kofi. Now, quick response. Number one, we are saying that we because you see, accountable to ourselves, right? That's if it's not ourselves, that's to another body, then that body had better identify itself clearly and properly so that we know where to go to get whatever mandate, right? Rather than issue an anonymous letter. The very fact that the letter is anonymous, like I said, is problematic because you are hiding from what you are saying. If you want to own that issue and you think that it's an issue, you have to put a face on it. You have to show up, discuss the matter. Now, again, the thing is, if you mean well, right, and you want to get these bodies under one umbrella, your approach will be to go to them and ask them to join up with you, not to question their authority. Kofi Bacho Damekan, I hope so. What's it Damekan? I say, me wo honum na se mate se mate sorry, right? Sorry, no be so be obekwai. Na me pese me de me nipa na wati bi obekwai no me fu se me ne no ye kan de kro na me pese obeka me ho dia. My approach would be go to the osofo no obekwai and to tell them say, hey, listen, let's unite and move forward with this thing here. But if I don't do that, and then I go in public to go and question the authority of Asorida Ewo Bekwai now, where does the unity come in after that? right? So I, in as much as I agree with you, say yes, there should be accountability and whatever. No, it should be to an identifiable body, and I don't even call that accountability. I call that cooperation, right? Because what's the tone of the letter now? What it's saying is that there's a certain collective which is responsible for giving you a license to operate as a Rastafari. That's since when? And it's in a church, and the apostolic church of somewhere, and as a Pentecostal church of whatever, or is the presbytery of wherever. Other than that, the early races, they came from the hills beating their bingy drums. Who gave them any mandate to do what? Now, after more, yet me about baby now, you bet me organize it and centralize, right? And people like the executives of the RCG have done so much work. You know how much work the RCG has done? Let me tell you, if you don't know. Back when I was growing up as a young ras, you couldn't get EWF to speak with 12 tribes. Tell me if I'm lying. I remember this incident. There was a show at Jacko's restaurant. Accra Hono. 12 tribes had a set of instruments, and they had a spare set of instruments. And EWF were looking for instruments to hold their show at my Yakani saying, Labadi Honum baby. Let me not go too deep. We weren't even talking to each other. Under the auspices of the Rastafari Council Ghana, we have a body which has Bobo Shanti. Are you listening? Which has Bobo Shanti at the table, which has 12 tribes at the table, which has EWF at the table, which have people who don't go to no mansions at the table. You're telling me this is not work done? And instead of you acknowledging this and bringing it all under one body with respect to organize and centralize, your approach is to question somebody's mandate and authority. That's completely wrong. Let's not even entertain that at all, with all due respect. Let's not entertain that. Because what we are doing is putting out the wrong message. Say, yes, it's okay to do nonsense like that with us and we will be fine. Because I gave the examples. You can't play reggae music. It's okay, fine. Monfamo reggae. You can't do this. It's okay, fine. When you say, now His Majesty himself, the concept of Rastafari, we have to come and get mandate. Am I the only one feeling this way? Please, somebody help me. And I'm having a bad feeling because I'm not getting too many reactions. So I'm thinking like I'm alone here. So if I am, somebody tell me I'm talking bullshit. Otherwise, please.
And you raise some very important questions. You raise important questions. With something to think about seriously, Yeah.
Selassie.
Yes,
Sorry, I didn't drive, so I mentioned a little bit, but I still want to sit in a couple of words. I don't, I come in a little late, so I'm not sure which letter the item they talk about. But I have some suspicion, and I just need if somebody could please shed a little light on which letter the item they talk about.
So then, Mami, what talk about quick? We're talking about how reggae music, for instance, right? Back in the day, we saw reggae as the king's music, and now we're being told it's not even king's music, it's Jamaican culture now, right? And how important reggae was in the whole setup of Rastafari. But now there seems to be some kind of mindset which wants to divorce the two. Same with repatriation and reparations. We cited the example of the Foundation Black Americans. We also cited the example of this letter that is making the rounds. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a letter that was questioning the authority of African Rastafari councils on the continent to form bodies and to speak for Rastafari and things like that. So I think that's the aspect that we were reacting to a short while ago.
All right. Thanks for that. First of all, I want to say that in terms of the letter that is making around that, I think think I know. But I want to say that nobody should pay any heed to any such. But remember saying challenge. Look at what is going on in the world right now. The white man has never really changed his life. It's pure divide and rule. Where did it go out? I tell you, let's just like this week, see how in Ireland they are now burning fire in the streets and attacking African immigrants. And if anybody want to divorce that from what is going on in South Africa, then the person is not really understanding what is going on in the world. I want you to know, and the people that the same person pulling the string in South Africa is the same person pulling the string in Ireland. It's the same person with the same. Most of these people are paid. Who Rastafari don't have no authority with no organization at home and abroad. And by that I mean saying the authority of Rastafari rests with Rastafari. Period. There is no, it's not like a Samadisco Christian church where you have the Wapia, and then when you want to set up a branch, we'll go consult the Wapia to set up that church. There's nothing like that. So nobody will fix it for England and then write a letter saying that people that go and work like them big bad and wrong. And then they set up this Rastafari Council of Sierra Leone and Rastafari Council of Ghana and all this kind of thing. Rasta, the fact that we are discussing the things it inform me some way. Nobody for book this party. I can tell you all right now. No, nobody for book out. Seriously. The more with the book out, the more we give power to them. And you know what? One thing we also to understand. Right now there's something called content creation. Where people where they on YouTube and say, who say every day they perhaps something to say so that they can get likes and get patronage, and then by so doing make money from those things and generate very crazy kind of material to spark debate, to spark tension and contention, and try to generate their audience from that kind of contentious debate with carry on. So I beg, let nobody give credence to that letter. Now, I also want to say that both at home and abroad, some people to understand that Babylon has done serious work. And I'm saying this as I heard the conversation when I came in regarding, how even here in America, for instance, we have Black people, Africans. When I say Africans, I mean people of origin are African and are African by race. Feel some kind of superiority complex over the so-called Africans born at home. Now, the question is to be asked, how did you get there? Somebody sent this into your mind a long time ago, and you're still holding on to it. The same way in South Africa, they or other people from other parts of the continent are very, in other words, you have othered the other people. You made immigrants from different kind of people from the Black people in South Africa. So the same thing will go for them. As you all know, I've been in teaching for a long time. I remember when I first started, I don't even want to use the word that they will call the students. Students will call you the teacher just because of this kind of notion, say, you coming from the motherland, and they still say, because of that, there is some kind of something wrong. So instead of really focusing on the victims, which is both sides of the Atlantic, those who are here and those who are back home, because the same thing when a black person back home, you know, call them equivalent of my friend, the same kind of logic will get here to get a thing do on people coming in. We could not say there's a lot of work to be done. And in as much as it seems that work so hard and I always use the when we look at the geography, when the white man came to what we call Ghana today, one of the places that you find very, very difficult to penetrate was the Grafin area. And there's a reason for it. The Grafin area was the bastion of African traditional spiritual ideas, and even today still has that. There are places like that. So Christianity was not allowed in that area. They tried, they sent their missionaries from Baako and all these places. And there's nothing people still rejected. So we don't want it. It's not part of our thing. They then went to the Caribbean and brought Christianized Africans from the Caribbean and brought them with the intention of saying, these be your people. Where did they practice Christianity? So how come they say you don't want Christ? And brought those people now as the missionaries to come evangelize, convert them. Today, when you hear the story, it may sound so perfect because there's some people most can have Christianized. They are. But I'm saying this to say that in as insurmountable as the job may seem, it is still not impossible. And it needs to be done. The same way the Babylon comes and brainwash us, it's that same way we need to work to colonize our minds and reorient ourselves. But in so doing, we have to also understand that we need to be patient in the sense that all have been working on both sides of that. The Americans, that's why you think go someplace like Jamda and somebody will jump down and say, you know, the word Africa, the moment you word the word Africa, you say, you know, people just the way they just they run around the place without no clothes and that. It's still pervasive, you know. So we have to work understanding that this is not an easy thing and that we have to continuously work on it until the day that we are free from these things that are binding our mind, that we will work together on both sides of the land. So those are my few words. Like I said, I did drive, so I'm very focused on the driving and listening. You know, these are, as you put it, conversations, but conversations that need to time, that we also need to understand, like when we're looking at what's going on in South Africa, and we see how the reaction has been from those who have been victimized. It's mostly going to the benefit of whoever is pulling them. And I think that every time these things happen, we will ask ourselves, who is benefiting, right? Who is benefiting? Who benefits when Ghanaians and South Africans are at least at this growth? Who benefits when people from the continent are being victimized? Who is benefiting? Because whoever is benefiting is at the helm of the provider. Never lose sight of that, right? Always ask that question. Who is benefiting? So ask that question. And after that question, then we will be able to also know what to do in order not to fall victim to the providers of the Babylon and what all. So guys, I hope I didn't talk too much. Sorry.
Nana, give thanks. Give plenty thanks. Just a very quick reaction though. Yes, I agree with you, sir. That letter should be treated with all the disrespect that it deserves. And ideally, we should just, poo-poo it and move on. But I also made the observation that that's been our that's been how we respond to these things, only to realize that they fester to other more intense problems, which is why I feel like this time we should single it out for condemnation, right? As a way of reclaiming the narrative. Because similar things have happened and we'll be like, whatever, and we'll let it slide. But then that reinforces a certain narrative and they go unchecked. So this gives birth to other narratives and other mindsets and actions which are undesirable. So I completely agree with you, Prof. But I feel like sometimes we have to make examples of some of these things, if not for anything at all, to use it as a tool to re-own the narrative. Give thanks.
Yes, give thanks, Jason, Rasajete.
Rasajita, I don't hear your
Bibika. Nah, Rasquisi. Obu Bibika, on share na answer Rasquisi, am I in the last? That be not your train with you. So, Nia JP, and I just signed that be from a show. Who you might wear that? The closing remarks.
Yes, I give thanks, bro. And the listen, I follow the reasoning, man. I think it is lively discussion and you're on point on these discussions, man. I never really understand that letter. That letter where they bring up, I never really understand it at all. So I think we for treat it with the disdain it deserves, and move on from that, and make it maybe we all we express. I see the argument on the platform, and it raised a lot of concerns. But I think we for show it with all the disdain it deserves, and then move on from that, and if for show love for Africans, if for no divide, if for not let anybody step in between us and divide us, because we got too many problems to get divided. Every time they step in and they divide us, they are ism and schism, and then we shouldn't fall for it, man. South Africa, we for love South Africans, because it's just a minority where they form this, what they call collaborators, We can't entertain them. So Africa will go unite, no matter what they say. Give thanks.
Nice. Give thanks.
Yes, sir. Rastafari greetings once and one and all.
Celestia, your son.
Yeah, man. Give thanks. Yeah, I want to apologize for being late though. I had to join another group meeting, the Global Food Sovereignty, sorry, Alliance. We had a meeting earlier, so I had to join up. So, yeah, later after we done, and I had to join on this one too. We give thanks for the reasoning. Joining in, I got the latter part of the reasoning, and yeah, I think it's a good topic to discuss about, and we should know how we can also separate ourselves from such critics, because those critics they are like things we should expect, you know But I think people like that, people who make such critics, are people who don't really research, and they don't really want to know what the thing is, but they just jump into conclusion by their own reasoning, you know. So yeah, it's good we look into it, but sometimes we have to really focus too on our way forward, what we have to do to get to our destination. So yeah, we give thanks for the reasoning same way, and I really appreciate the energy and the efforts once and once are putting in to see the organization rise to its heights.
Give
So God
thanks.
bless, yeah, God bless one and all, and give thanks. Rastafari.
Celestia.
Yes, Daddy B, me pacho. Kiete onka, ya niwe jepa. Yo, it be like say Daddy B no fit talk now, so please, my lord,
Lion, please forgive me. I'm in the middle of a meeting, so I'm following. But give thanks and give thanks for the reasoning. Bless.
give thanks. So, Jabi Lovell, pacho, Obama closing remarks.
Yo, Bedase. Nananom. Any Nanahima Sadia. Closing remarks. As I said, we have had a discussion. I don't think that rehashing any of the points will serve any purpose. The only thing that I think we should be very in tune with is that the narrative matters. The narrative is very, very, very important. Like I said, slavery happened many, 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 many years ago, hundreds of years ago. It started. And Nipa Omujina United Nations in New York wearing mufflers and holding placards. And none of them were there. None of them was brought here on a ship. But the reason why this narrative has lived on for 400 years is because we did not counter the narrative. We just left the narrative to slide and just let people go with whatever they claim, right? And the classic example is that we as continental Africans sold our brothers and sisters into slavery. And that has been something that has been accepted for so many years, to the point where even governments are setting up programs, apologize and so on. I'm talking about the so-called Joseph Project, which the government of Ghana was going to initiate, or even initiated under President Kufuor and stuff like that. I think that we need to research a little more before we dive into some of these things, right? Because this is why I'm talking about narrative. Joseph Project, even that name alone, that's a lot, and it's very problematic. Because anybody who reads the Bible knows the story of Joseph and how his brothers sold him into slavery, and he came back to rescue them. Right? After them selling him into slavery, if it hadn't been for him, they would have perished. And now that's the tag of that project, the Joseph Project. So now the children that we Africans sold into slavery are coming back to rescue the continent as Josephs. Now, if you put some nonsense like this up, what you are doing is reinforcing the narrative that we sold them into slavery. So on a governmental level, Krapono, we are pushing this narrative that reinforces that flawed idea rather than exploring the matter deeply enough to realize that there were some people who were living 20 miles from Elmina, but people would bypass them and go all the way to the north to go get slaves. Why? And shall the sins of the collaborators be visited on the victims? Because if me and my brothers went out to the field and the slave raiders came and they captured 3 of them and 4 of us ran away, are the 4 of us to be blamed for the 3 that were captured? So it's a very flawed narrative, which we, by our inactions, have signed on to. And that's why I think it's important that we have these types of discussions. Let the voice of the continental African be heard loud and clear. That whatever we have to take responsibility for, we will. And we are very, very, very sorry that some of us, our family, which are also your family too, those in the diaspora, they are your family too, were involved in the process of the enslavement. But do you blame that on the entire African continent? After all the work that went in to dissolve that nonsense, after all the resistance that happened, are we negating Nana Kwame Nkrumah and all his fight against the invaders? Are we negating the I forget the Congolese king? I forget his name. All these kings that stood up, the Benin king who stood up and was eventually beheaded, and all of that. Are we negating all of these? It's disrespectful to their memory. It's disrespectful to the memory of those who stood up for Africa. For us to sit down and not say anything and let people run amok with the false narrative. So I want to end by saying that this, again, is not intended to deepen our cracks. It's rather intended to provide the panacea that will heal our wounds. And dressing wounds is not a pleasant affair. But and also so now I think is the time to have that uncomfortable discussion. Now is the time to make ourselves feel uncomfortable if we must. If really and truly there's a question for us to answer, now is the time for us continental Africans to answer those questions so that we can all come together at the table with a common goal in mind. African unity with a common goal. Not African unity with you thinking that I wronged you, or African unity with me thinking that whatever else. Thinking that maybe because I am on the continent, because I wasn't taken away, I have more rights to the continent than you or whatever. We need to get to the bottom of all of that. And I think it all starts with owning the narrative. It's not going to be a one-day affair. It's not going to be an overnight affair. But if all we do is plant the seed, we will be proud that we have started something that will grow up to be a bigger thing. Because when we were younger, we didn't have RCG. Now we have RCG. Progress, right? So if all we do is to start that conversation, I trust future generations to pick up on this conversation and set the record straight and wrestle back the narrative from those to use the narrative to divide us. I give thanks for the opportunity once more. Jah Rastafari, give thanks.
Rastafari, we give thanks. And Aja beloved, we give thanks once and all, my lords and empresses, for joining tonight's Rastafari Reasoning. We'll come your way another 2 weeks with another topic. It's been recommended on the general platform that we bring General Tautau to answer to some of the issues happening in South Africa. So we'll engage him and try and get him to make a presentation next 2 weeks. So we hope you will all join the reasoning. We give thanks. Nana Ida Sipa for the insights.
Mr. Midas.